Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Wondering if everybody's okay and where they are and if they're accounted for.
And as soon as we have the information about how this fire started, we'll make that public.
24 hours after flames ripped through Lytton, the search for survivors is underway with a number of people still unaccounted for and most homes and buildings destroyed. Also,
we've faced enormous challenges with wildfires in the last few years, and this year is proving no different.
So it's come through the valley. It's coming in behind us, so this is likely to be, we're trying to protect cows. We got to go. Cows.
The threat of danger is growing by the hour province-wide. Several wildfires now prompting alerts and evacuations from the north to the south. And
there's nothing to celebrate. Thousands of children's graves are being discovered all across the country.
A somber Canada Day, the usual July 1st celebrations overshadowed by historical wrongs.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Anita is off tonight. I'm Tanya Fletcher. A number of people are still unaccounted for tonight in a village turned to ash by wildfire. Many who did make it out have scattered now to nearby communities, some still desperate to find their loved ones. We're also getting a better sense of the devastating scale of the destruction they fled. Our Susanna De Silva begins our coverage tonight from just outside of Lytton. So, Susie, how are the conditions where you are right now?
Well, they are very, very windy. These sort of conditions are what help contribute to this fire spreading so quickly in this community. Now, Lytton is actually just around the corner back there. We had been set up right at the checkpoint where the highway is blocked off, but the wind gusts were simply too much for our satellite truck and we had to reposition. But when you look towards Lytton, you can see fires burning in the hills above Lytton. Next door, another mountain, you can see another fire just over that hill. Helicopters working constantly to try to put those fires out. Volatile conditions that help contribute to the almost complete devastation of that community.
The store.
As people fled for their lives, the fear was there would be nothing to return to. And the devastating images today show for many that is the reality. About 90% of the community.
A minute later, our neighbor came rushing up, and that's when we saw the smoke.
Elder and former Chief Byron Spinks had minutes to get out with his wife.
We just had a devastating experience last night, and the smoke was coming up, the heat, you could feel the heat.
They scrambled to find their dog, but had to leave her behind. She's been seen on social media posts, giving them hope.
We didn't see it go up, but it is within 100 feet of it.
When he did look back from his sister's home a couple of kilometers away, the plume grew dramatically. Then came hours of tense waiting to finally hear good news from his daughter and grandson. They're safe. For others, they're still waiting.
I haven't heard from my cousins, Daryl and Gail, Daryl Dunstan and Gail Johnny, and my uncle Alphonse.
Casey Johnny is desperate to hear from some of her family.
It's been tough, emotional, because a lot of people have lost their homes.
The RCMP is now going door to door to try and find those unaccounted for. Meanwhile, the nearby community of Boothroyd is training its members to fight if the fire comes their way.
So we're ready to protect our community in any way we can.
But for now, it's one step at a time.
I'm afraid to go back, but I want to go back at the same time just to witness the devastation and just to make us, I guess, acknowledge and the loss that we've had.
And Susie, any idea when people may be allowed back in to assess if there's anything left?
Yeah, officials are saying it will be at least 24 hours, that there are still spot fires within the community. Of course, the fires burning around, so still very volatile at this point. In the meantime, people are posting on social media a list of names of people who are safe and also a list of those who are still missing as they try to find them. Tanya?
All right, thanks so much. That's our Susanna De Silva reporting from just outside of Lytton tonight. Well, meanwhile, many of the Lytton evacuees have ended up in Merritt. That's about 60 kilometers away. Some of them already know they've lost their homes, and others are still separated from their loved ones. Our Brady Strachan has been hearing some of their stories, and he joins us live now from Merritt. So, Brady, what's the situation where you are right now?
Well, Tanya, evacuees came streaming into Merritt yesterday evening. Many of them ended up checking into one of the motels here in town, and that's where they found other evacuees, friends and neighbors, and they started sharing stories of the frantic struggle to get out of Lytton as it burned down around them.
Well, it was right there. It was already on our doorstep. My neighbor's, he's got a woodshed there, and he just stocked it full of wood for the winter. It caught on fire, and then his siding on his house was melting. He had a great big propane tank, and I could hear that thing starting to hiss. So
he says there wasn't any time to get anything from his house.
I just grabbed my dogs and I just barely made it out. I had to stop twice because of the smoke. I couldn't see where I was going. Finally, I got a break in the smoke and I got out.
He believes his house is likely destroyed. Today, he's sitting outside of a motel in Merritt with Bonnie Nixon and other people who fled the fire. She too escaped with only a few possessions.
It was bad. I cried and cried and cried. Fell asleep crying, you know, and then you wake up this morning and here we are. We're displaced, you know. I want to go home, but we can't.
Today, she's heard that her home in a trailer park north of Lytton is still standing, but she says some of her friends and family members who live in town are not so lucky.
Buddy in Lytton has lost everything, my sister included. She had a house down there. She lives a little bit past Hobo Hollow. She's on Fraser Street. Gone.
Now, officials are still investigating the cause of the fire, but they say much of the town was destroyed. And for evacuees here in Merritt, they're wondering if they have anything to go home to. Tanya.
Thank you, Brady. That's our Brady Strachan continuing our coverage live from Merritt tonight. And this is not the only fire we're watching tonight. There are a growing number of evacuations this hour. More communities under threat. The CBC's Katie Nicholson now on the threat, not only from the fire, but also from floods.
Evacuation order, you got to go.
Another night of rapidly moving fire, forcing hundreds from their homes. This fire near Deca Lake sparked up just today. So did this one, 7 hours away in Castlegar.
The area around us is very dry, and today it's windy and it's not a cool breeze. It is a hot wind, and all of that is a recipe for disaster.
People here are watching the fire and packing their bags just in case.
Like literally a day or two after what we saw happen in Lytton, and feel for everybody in the communities there. It's just a very anxiety-ridden time.
These among the dozens of fires burning their way through forests and homes.
So unfortunately, it looks like our place has got zapped.
This was as close as Marshall Potts could get to his ranch near Kamloops.
It's all black. All the trees are gone. All the grass is black.
It's been a dangerous week. Around 300 deaths in BC linked to the brutal heat wave. And it's not just fires, it's floods. Soaring temperatures in the mountains created an unprecedented alpine melt and flood watches and warnings. In McBride, the Fraser River spilled its banks, allowing moose to wade through fields and forcing crews to shore up the walls of this sewage lagoon.
So they worked at that all night, and then about an hour ago, the water got high enough to where if they hadn't done the work, it would have been overtopping it.
All brought on by that merciless dome of heat. These dire days, so early in the season, experts say, could become the norm, as climate change means more of this more often.
If we continue on this path, then a few decades from now, we'll just call this summer. That's what summer will be. That's what summer will mean every summer. And so the choice is ours.
Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Vancouver.
And let's bring in our meteorologist, Johanna Wagstaffe, for the very latest on the weather situation as we speak. And Joe, you're tracking more active lightning at the moment.
That's right. Hundreds of lightning strikes firing up once again over the Rockies and through the southeastern sections of the province. I want to show you the latest lightning detection. Alarming to see Susie earlier in the show with such gusty winds. Sometimes it's hard to get a reading of how strong those winds are in between weather stations as they race through the valleys. I would estimate they're up around 50 to 70 kilometers per hour just by watching Susie between weather stations there. And those lightning strikes obviously are concerning. I've really been watching them around the Kimberley and Cranbrook area. Thanks for all your reports through the day. These thunderstorms are beginning to train, meaning they're moving over the same areas constantly. So we could actually be looking at some good rainfall, but those lightning strikes, very alarming with how dry the situation is. And that's so close to the situation we're watching in Castlegar. Still, according to BC Wildfire, only 7 hectares in size, but getting very close to those communities that have been put under the evacuation order close to the highway. You can see here the fire danger rating for today. It looks a little different than yesterday. In the northeast, note the green. We did get some good rain up towards Fort Nelson, along with those thunderstorms, but those red patches still extreme, and that is where we are getting the lightning strikes. So a developing situation again tonight. We could be looking at more fire strikes, more lightning strikes, I should say, and fire starts. And the heat warning still in place for a huge swath of Western Canada. Tanya, also in place for Vancouver and Victoria. Even though we've cooled down a bit, Environment Canada working with health officials to keep that in place until we get a massive cool down, just because of how dangerous the situation has been. I've got the full forecast, though, coming up.
And we know you'll keep an eye on all of that for us throughout the evening. Thanks so much. That's our Johanna Wagstaffe live for us tonight. It is another Subdued Canada Day, but this year it's not COVID keeping those from celebrating. As our evacuees tells us, historical wrongs are hanging over today's July 1st celebrations.
And we will reclaim every single thing that was taken.
Anger and grief. This Canada Day is a stark contrast to past celebrations.
I don't think there's anything to celebrate in genocide.
Calls for action after the discoveries of unmarked graves at multiple residential schools, and frustration that it's taken this long to reckon with Canada's past.
Indigenous people have known what Canada and the churches have been doing for our entire lives.
My papa went to St. Paul's Indian Residential School, and he told me the horror stories of what it was like growing up there.
A reckoning that swept BC.
I hope that people can take the next number of hours and reflect upon the benefits of being Canadian on Canada Day, but also to reflect on the challenges in our history.
Some cities canceled July 1st celebrations out of respect for residential school survivors. Others, like Prince George, held alternative celebrations of Indigenous culture. In East Vancouver, streets were painted with a simple message: every child matters.
There's nothing to celebrate. Thousands of children's graves are being discovered all across the country, more to come.
And through it all, a message to non-Indigenous Canadians: listen.
It shouldn't have taken actual remains to get you guys to listen, because we had to lose those babies generations ago.
A message that is resonating with those non-Indigenous Canadians.
I think canceling the big celebrations is okay. It's okay, and it's better to have a conversation about what's happened.
And I'm here in support, because that's the best thing we can do, support.
Support that has been welcomed by Indigenous peoples, and that they hope won't be forgotten at future Canada Day events. Eva Yugwensenj, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, 46 years to the day after the Lower Post Residential School in northern British Columbia closed its doors, an excavator tore down the last standing building yesterday. A crowd of around 600, including politicians and residential school survivors, gathered for the ceremonial demolition. The rest of the structure will be razed and burned when the weather cools down. The local First Nation says survivors will decide what they want on the site next. A new Canadian citizenship study guide is in the works for new immigrants. The current edition is a decade old, and it glosses over Indigenous history and colonization. As the CBC's Kieran Singh tells us, many newcomers are keen to read the new version, which will incorporate recommended changes by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
I felt that I was betraying my values. I felt like I was betraying the Indigenous communities who have been here since time immemorial.
Nazanin Mogaidami started studying for her Canadian citizenship oath 3 years ago. She says it felt like she was being lied to.
There was a lot of sugarcoating. There was no recognition of violence, about colonization, around settlement, around forced displacement.
She learned a lot about hockey in the Hudson's Bay Company and when Europeans explored the continent. But the official guidebook had few details about the land's longer history or the country's relationship with Indigenous nations. That was supposed to change after 2015 with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Of all the calls to action, this should have been one of the ones that would be relatively straightforward and quite quick to do. Not to say that these things don't become politically loaded.
More than ever, the country is reckoning with its colonial past. She describes it as a huge national project.
The targeting of newcomers is not targeting them exceptionally, but to make sure that they are part of the massive societal-wide effort to re-educate ourselves.
It's shameful.
The NDP immigration critic sees the delay as a sign the government is too slow to act on reconciliation.
Still, to this day, we still don't know where the study guide is. I asked the minister numerous occasions.
Earlier this month, a virtual citizenship ceremony asked new Canadians a new commitment to respect treaties with Indigenous nations. The guide is expected next.
As an immigrant, I don't want to see a study guide that is done by an agenda of erasure and whitewashing and sugarcoating. I want it to be the truth.
The Minister of Immigration says an updated guide is in the works, but could not provide a specific timeline. Kiran Singh, CBC News, Vancouver.
To Vancouver's West End now, where the Pride crosswalk has been vandalized. The rainbow at Davian Butte is stained with white paint tonight, defaced just a day after the end of Pride Month. Witnesses on social media claim to capture photos of the suspects who put down enough paint that passing cars tracked it into both sides of the crosswalk. Vancouver police say they are now investigating. Well, the day many have been waiting for has arrived. Most COVID restrictions now lifted province-wide. We'll have a rundown of the looser rules and the reaction coming up next. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. There are mixed opinions and emotions this Canada Day. The discoveries of unmarked graves has prompted many to reflect rather than celebrate. The CBC asked Danny Knight, a Saskatoon artist, how he feels about the holiday. Here he is performing his poem titled Happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day. These words I first heard at a celebration involving burning lights in the sky. I said them back, and the person smiled at me. I got older, and through the years I suffered because of the color of my skin. Savage, bum, thief. Happy Canada Day were the words that were said to me. When I became a young man, I learned that Canada was a liar, a cheat, and a glutton, happily eating up its own lies and spewing them out to the rest of the world. Happy Canada Day. Followed by more words. Well, aren't you going to say it back? These people, nothing's ever good enough for them. Well, bro, why don't you celebrate Canada Day? Words of sorrow would come pouring out of my mouth, and what I would hear back is denial and justification, or, whoa, buddy, can you just get over it? Happy Canada Day. We say we wrote the Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, yet we were unable to sign it when it was created. So just what are you celebrating? Canada's accomplishments? Are they accomplishments? The truth has been revealed to the masses that Canada's monstrous side isn't 150 years ago. It's way closer than thought, and in some people, it's here and now. So just what are we celebrating? The decimation of a people and a culture? Or the lies we were told about how a war was won when there was no war? Settlers came here, died, and Indigenous people taught them how to live off the land, and they were backstabbed, given blankets that spread disease, their precious food source harvested beyond all repair. And you call that a war? And you're proud of it? Happy Canada Day. You see, I don't celebrate Canada Day, and you may ask yourself, what do I celebrate? My friends, their birthdays, their projects, their accomplishments. I celebrate love, hope, and rehabilitation. That's right, I can be happy, and I don't need to take away anything from anyone to be happy. So you go. Stare in awe at the flashes of light in the midnight sky, the crackling boom that envelops your whole body, and sing your song of conquest, of your home on native land. And I'll be here. We will all still be here, like we always have been, waiting.
And we'll be back in just a few moments with more on the start and the ushering in of the third phase of BC's Restart Plan. Welcome back. The provincial state of emergency that's been in place since March of 2020, triggered by the pandemic, has officially been lifted today, and BC is moving into step 3 of the Restart Plan. Our Mira Baines joins us live with more. And Mira, how are people reacting to the next phase of reopening?
Well, Tanya, while some people are happy about moving into step 3, others are still being cautious. What a lot of people seem to be focused on today is whether to mask or not to mask. Take a listen.
I live on the drive and people are behaving, they move. And if you're somewhere crowded, they put their masks on. So there is consideration.
I mean, I think it's a step in the right direction, but I went to a coffee shop this morning. I definitely wore my mask. I got it here. I might not wear it on the sidewalk today, but I'm still going to wear it in a business.
I haven't gotten my second shot, and I have a feeling a lot of people haven't. So I feel like I'm still going to stay in my world where I wear a face mask all the time.
There will be no size limits for indoor and outdoor personal gatherings with friends and family, and organized indoor gatherings are capped at 50% capacity. The same goes for outdoor events. And also going forward, nightclubs, casinos, and banquet halls can reopen, but with reduced capacity and safety measures. There's also no limit on group dining sizes at restaurants, bars, pubs, but establishments can set their own rules, and liquor service will return to normal hours. Fairs and festivals can restart again. Sports and exercise facilities can go back to normal with safety plans, and you can travel recreationally across Canada.
Yeah, so Mira, we can travel across Canada now. That's a big green light, but it seems many are taking advantage of simply staying within BC to travel.
That's right. This has been a big day for travel. BC Ferries warned people about a 5 sailing wait at the Horseshoe Bay Ferry Terminal earlier today, and they're also warning about ferry traffic on Sunday. However, due to the extreme fire risk across the province, Premier John Horgan raised concerns about people heading into the backcountry.
We can't do anything about lightning strikes, but we can do something about our personal behavior, and I urge all British Columbians to be very cautious when they're out and about in the forests. There will be, of course, closures in many areas, certainly around Lillooet right now. There will be no backcountry activity. There will be no economic activity. We want people to stay out of the woods.
The province has also banned campfires because of the fire risk. Tanya?
All right, thank you, Mira. That's our Mira Baines reporting live for us tonight. At 6:22, you're looking at a live shot of Kamloops where you can see the thick smoke hangs over the city. It's been 24 hours of some wicked and frankly terrifying weather. Johanna breaks down why this all happened and what's coming next after the break.
Vancouver is the envy of many people in this country. Vancouver residents have the sea at their doorsteps, the mountains in their backyards, and fresh ocean breezes that make it not too hot, not too cold, just a bit wet. But so many people want to live there, the city's running out of room, and that's led to confrontations between developers and those who want to keep some of the wide open spaces. Paul Adams reports.
It's the sea and the mountains that make Vancouver one of the most attractive places in Canada to live. But those barriers also hem the city in, limiting room to expand. Greater Vancouver's population has grown by about 20,000 people a year during the 1980s. It's clogged the roads, it's pushed housing prices up. And as housing prices rise, developers are pushing to build on any land they can find. This is Terra Nova, about 150 hectares of farmland in the Vancouver suburb of Richmond. A local developer wants to build 1,500 homes here. It may make economic sense, but the plan has enraged environmentalists who say the city should preserve increasingly precious green space. Mike Vapotic opposes the development too. He's a farmer who makes his living growing vegetables in Terra Nova.
I feel pretty sad because I've been in this area for 24 years. It's sad that I'm going to have to be pushed out of here. I won't be able to farm here no more. It's very sad.
Why are you doing this to Richmond?
A crowd of local residents shouted their opposition to new development when Richmond Council met to make a decision on the plan. But the majority on council are hungry for the economic benefits of new development.
If more people pay taxes, we each have to pay a smaller share.
All those in favor? I declare myself in favor.
Council approved the plan.
Why don't you infill Richmond rather than developing?
Add a chunk of the cake instead of having the whole thing.
The dispute over Terra Nova is just one of a number of similar controversies here in Greater Vancouver in recent years. And those controversies are bound to continue, at least as long as people continue to gravitate here to the West Coast. Paul Adams, CBC News, Richmond, British Columbia.
Let's bring back our Johanna Wagstaffe and back to Lytton, Joe. And a question many are asking is, how did this fire happen so quickly?
Yeah, Tanya, 24 hours later, we know that climate change set the stage for these unprecedented wildfire conditions across the province, but the setup last night was a worst-case scenario that forecasters had feared.
The world was already watching Lytton. It is BC's and Canada's hottest spot, shattering national temperature records 3 days in a row, from 46.6 to 47.9 to 49.5. Combined with a record dry spring, this recent heat set the stage for the fires we're seeing now. It dried the forests, making them easier to engulf, and high winds created a kind of blowtorch. Lytton sits inside a canyon. As the heat dome shifted east, pressure differences caused high winds to race up the valley into the village, at least 71 kilometers per hour. Fast enough to see a fire coming, like the last image from the Lytton weather station camera. And fast enough to have to run away minutes later. Fast enough, too, to help the fire jump across the river. From space, you can see the heat signatures as the fire pushed north. And while it had helped to grow, the danger now is that this wildfire can help itself. Take a look at this. What you're seeing is a mix of storm clouds and smoke, but they can act the same way. Pyrocumulus clouds from wildfires can produce dry lightning and intense wind gusts, sparking new fires. And relief won't come as that heat dome continues east. It will open the door to more instability and intense thunderstorms.
And Tanya, I want to take you straight to that live lightning detector. You can see hundreds once again sparking up in the Rockies. Just a few strikes I'm seeing now in through the central interior and the southeast, really taking the brunt of it. The heat dome is shifting eastward. We are seeing temperatures come down, still though hot enough to create extreme wildfire conditions. Let's talk about Vancouver for a second. We are coming down to sort of the 24s, 25s for the next few days. This is going to be still hot for us. And as I mentioned earlier, we still have that heat warning in place just because it has been so unprecedented. It is still dangerous. Another thing I'm watching over the next couple of days is smoke from those wildfires. We're seeing a bit of a shift in our weather pattern as that low moves through. So we've got more clouds the next couple of days, but look for that elevated smoke to mix in tomorrow afternoon. And I'll be keeping my eye on it through the weekend, Tanya. Hopefully we'll have a better idea of just how bad our smoke event will be on the South Coast tomorrow.
Thank you so much for your coverage on this, Johanna. That's our Johanna Wagstaffe live with us. You can always find our news program online at cbc.ca/BC. For the very latest on the wildfire situation, be sure to tune in to the National tonight at 10 p.m. We'll leave you with some aerial shots taken over Lytton today. The community devastated as the province mourns for the residents. Good night and stay safe.